Hey everyone, welcome back to Easy English Podcast with Emily and Michael.
Hi guys, we're so glad you're here with us today.
I hope your day is going well so far.
And if your motivation is a little low today, this episode is definitely for you.
Yes, today we're talking about how to stay motivated.
Which is a very interesting topic because motivation sounds simple, but in real life, it can disappear very fast.
That's true.
One day, you feel inspired, focused, and ready to change your whole life.
And the next day, you can't even answer one email.
Exactly.
Honestly, I think almost everyone struggles with motivation.
Definitely.
Even people who look very disciplined from the outside.
Yes. I think many people imagine that motivated people feel motivated all the time.
But that's not true.
Not true at all.
So, maybe we should start with a simple question. What is motivation for you?
For me, motivation is that feeling of inner energy that makes action feel easier.
That's a good definition.
It's like something inside you says, yes, let's do this.
Yes, and when motivation is there, things feel lighter.
Exactly.
But when motivation is gone, even small tasks can feel heavy.
So heavy.
I think motivation is powerful, but also unstable.
That's a very good word.
It comes and goes.
Yes. And I think that's why people get confused.
What do you mean?
I mean, people build big plans when they feel motivated.
Yes.
But then they expect the same energy to still be there on difficult days.
That's so true.
And when it's gone, they think something is wrong with them.
Exactly.
But maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe motivation is just not designed to stay at the same level all the time.
I really agree with that.
So, Emily, do you think you are a motivated person?
Sometimes yes,
That sounds careful.
because it depends on the area of life.
That makes sense.
There are things where I feel naturally motivated.
Like what?
Things that feel meaningful to me. Things that feel connected to growth, structure, creativity, or peace.
That sounds very Emily.
I know.
What about areas where motivation is harder?
Usually things that feel repetitive, unclear, or emotionally heavy.
Yes, that's relatable.
If I don't understand why I'm doing something, motivation drops very quickly.
Same.
What about you?
I think I'm motivated in short waves.
That also sounds very you.
Thank you.
So what does that mean exactly?
It means I can have strong motivation, but I need the right conditions.
Like what?
A clear goal, enough energy, a bit of excitement, and not too much pressure.
That actually makes sense.
If the pressure becomes too strong, my motivation often becomes weaker instead of stronger.
Yes, I think that happens to many people.
People often think pressure creates motivation.
But sometimes it just creates fear.
Exactly.
And fear is not always a good fuel.
No. It can create action for a short time, but it usually doesn't feel sustainable.
That's a really important point.
I think there's a big difference between healthy motivation and anxious motivation.
Wow. Yes,
Healthy motivation feels alive, but not aggressive.
I love that.
It feels like movement.
Yes,
Anxious motivation feels tight.
exactly. It feels like pressure, guilt, panic, or self-criticism.
And that kind of motivation often ends in exhaustion.
Definitely. Do you think people rely on motivation too much?
Yes, I really do.
Me too.
I think motivation is great, but it's not a full system.
Exactly.
It's more like a spark.
That's such a good image.
It helps you start.
But it doesn't always help you continue.
Yes. That's where habits, structure, and clarity become important.
I completely agree. I think a lot of people say, I'll do it when I feel motivated.
And then they wait.
Yes. And they keep waiting.
And sometimes that feeling doesn't come.
Exactly.
I'm not saying people should force themselves all the time,
No.
but I do think action sometimes creates motivation, not only the other way around.
That is such a good point.
Sometimes starting is what creates the feeling.
Yes. You begin with low energy, but after 10 minutes you feel more engaged.
Exactly.
I've experienced that so many times, especially with things like cleaning, writing, answering messages, or going for a walk. Yes.
Before starting, it feels impossible.
And after starting, it feels normal.
That's so relatable.
So, maybe one of the biggest mistakes is waiting to feel perfect before doing something.
Definitely. I think people often imagine motivation like a magical state.
Yes. Like one morning, they will suddenly wake up full of energy, clarity, discipline, and purpose.
Exactly.
And maybe that happens sometimes.
Sometimes.
But not every day.
Definitely not every day.
I think a healthier question is not, how do I feel motivated all the time?
What question would be better?
Maybe, how do I keep moving, even when motivation changes?
That's a much better question.
I think so too.
So, what helps you when motivation is low?
Clarity helps a lot.
Say more.
If I know exactly what I need to do, it feels easier.
Yes. Vagueness kills motivation.
Exactly. If a task feels too big, too abstract, or too messy, my mind resists it.
Same.
But if I make it smaller and clearer, I can start.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
For example, instead of saying, I need to fix my whole life, I might say, I just need to answer one message, or write one paragraph, or go outside for 10 minutes.
Yes, that's much more possible.
And possible is a very important word.
Definitely.
Motivation grows better around things that feel possible.
I love that.
What helps you?
Reducing friction.
That sounds smart.
If something is too hard to begin, I try to make the first step easier.
Like what?
If I want to go for a walk, I put my shoes near the door.
Nice.
If I want to work on something, I open the file first and make the first step very small.
That's really useful.
If I want to cook, I try to keep food simple, so it doesn't feel like a huge event.
That actually makes sense.
I think motivation disappears quickly when every action feels heavy.
Yes, too much friction creates resistance.
Exactly.
I also think environment matters a lot.
Definitely.
It's harder to stay motivated in a space that feels chaotic, distracting, or draining.
I agree.
For example, if I'm trying to focus but my space feels messy, or my phone is next to me, or everything around me feels loud, motivation drops.
Yes, the environment is always talking to you.
That's such a good way to say it.
Thank you.
It tells you whether something feels easy, stressful, inviting, or difficult.
Exactly. Do you think motivation is emotional?
Very.
Me too.
I think people often talk about motivation like it's only about discipline.
But emotion is a big part of it.
Huge part.
If you feel sad, anxious, overwhelmed, lonely, or tired, motivation changes.
Yes. And that doesn't mean you're lazy.
That's really important.
Sometimes low motivation is not a character problem. It's information.
Wow. That is so true.
It can tell you that you need rest.
Or clarity.
Or support.
Or less pressure.
Or a different strategy.
Yes, I really like that idea.
Motivation is not only something to control, sometimes it's something to understand.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I think one of the worst things people do when motivation is low is attacking themselves.
Definitely.
They say, I'm lazy, I'm weak, I have no discipline, I never do anything right.
Yes, and that inner voice makes everything heavier.
Exactly.
I think shame is a very bad motivational tool.
I completely agree.
It may create some action sometimes, but it usually creates tension too.
And tension is not the same as healthy momentum.
Exactly.
I think kindness matters more than people realize. Not fake kindness, not excuses, but real kindness.
Like understanding where you are today
Yes,
and asking, what is one honest next step I can take?
that's such a strong question.
I use that question a lot.
I can see why.
It helps me come back to reality.
And reality is where motivation becomes practical.
Exactly. By the way, if you enjoy listening to Simple English with us, don't forget to subscribe to Easy English Podcast with Emily and Michael.
And if you think this episode can help a friend with English, feel free to share it with them.
We'd really appreciate that.
Okay, let's keep going.
Let's talk about long-term motivation.
Good idea.
Because short motivation is one thing.
Yes, that exciting beginning energy.
Exactly. But long-term motivation is much harder.
Definitely.
At the beginning, everything feels fresh.
New plan, new notebook, new mindset, new life.
Exactly.
And then, 1 week later, reality arrives.
That's so true.
The task becomes repetitive. Life becomes busy. Energy changes.
And suddenly, the original excitement is not enough.
So how do you stay connected to a goal for longer?
For me, meaning is very important.
Meaning?
Yes, I need to know why something matters.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
If I lose the reason, I lose a lot of energy.
Same.
I can do difficult things if they feel meaningful.
Me too.
But if something feels empty, I struggle.
I think many people try to motivate themselves only with results.
Yes, like weight loss, money, achievement, success, external outcomes.
Exactly.
But I think process meaning matters too.
Say more.
I mean, if the daily experience feels terrible, the future result is often not enough.
That is such a good point.
You need some form of meaning inside the process too.
Yes. Otherwise, the whole thing feels like endless force.
Exactly.
I also think identity matters.
Definitely.
If you see yourselves as the kind of person who keeps showing up, that helps.
Yes, I agree.
It's not just, I want one result.
It's also, I want to become a certain kind of person.
Exactly.
A person who keeps promises to themselves.
A person who tries again.
A person who doesn't give up after one low day.
A person who keeps moving in a calm way.
I love that.
Me too.
What do you do when motivation disappears completely?
First, I try not to panic.
That's a good start.
Because I think many people feel low motivation and immediately think everything is broken.
Yes, they turn one difficult day into a full identity crisis.
Exactly.
I've done that before.
Same.
So what do you do instead?
I try to lower the goal for that day.
That's very smart.
If I can't do the full version, I do a smaller version.
I really believe in that.
For example, if I wanted a long workout, maybe I just go for a short walk.
Yes.
If I wanted to do deep work for 2 hours, maybe I do 20 minutes.
Exactly.
If I wanted to clean everything, maybe I clean one small area.
That still counts.
Definitely.
I think one of the best motivational skills is learning how to keep a habit alive in a smaller form.
Wow. Yes.
Because full intensity is not always available.
But some connection is still possible.
Exactly.
And that keeps the relationship with the habit warm.
That is such a beautiful way to say it.
Thank you.
I also think motivation suffers when life becomes too full.
Absolutely.
If the day is overloaded, the mind has no space.
Yes. Everything feels like a demand.
And then even good things start to feel heavy.
That's so true.
I think some people don't actually have a motivation problem.
What do they have then?
They have a stress problem, or a sleep problem, or an emotional overload problem.
That is very real.
If you're exhausted, motivation will naturally be lower.
Definitely.
So, sometimes the solution is not more discipline,
It's more sleep
or more rest,
or less pressure.
or a calmer schedule.
I completely agree. Let's talk about discipline for a moment, because people always compare motivation and discipline.
Yes, that's a big topic.
Do you think discipline matters more than motivation?
I think both matter, but in different ways.
That sounds balanced.
Because motivation helps you start,
Yes,
and discipline helps you continue.
I like that.
But I also think discipline should not feel like self-punishment.
Definitely not.
Healthy discipline feels steady, not violent.
Wow, that's strong and true.
I think people hear discipline and imagine being cold, hard, and perfect.
Yes, like a machine.
But I think good discipline is more like gentle consistency.
That is such a good phrase.
Thank you.
Gentle consistency sounds much healthier than aggressive discipline.
Exactly.
I think that's what actually lasts.
Yes.
Do you ever lose motivation because you compare yourself to other people?
Definitely.
Same.
Comparison can destroy motivation very quickly.
Yes, because then the goal stops feeling personal.
Exactly.
You stop asking, what matters to me?
And start asking, what looks impressive?
That's such a good distinction.
Thank you.
I think comparison creates a very unstable kind of motivation.
Yes, because it's based on external pressure, not inner clarity.
And external pressure changes all the time.
Definitely. I think real motivation becomes stronger when the goal feels truly yours.
I agree completely.
Not trendy, not impressive, not socially approved, but personally meaningful.
Yes. That's where the energy feels deeper.
Exactly.
Let's talk about one more thing. What helps motivation feel easier?
Celebration helps.
Interesting.
I think people often forget to notice small progress.
Yes. They only focus on what is missing.
Exactly.
Like, I should be further, better, faster, stronger, more consistent.
Yes. But if you never notice progress, motivation dries up.
That's such a good point.
Even small wins matter.
Definitely.
One good day matters.
One small step matters.
One better choice matters.
One return after a bad week matters.
Exactly.
I think people need more encouragement and less inner aggression.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean no standards,
No.
but it means a healthier relationship with growth.
I really like that.
Me too.
So, if someone listening says, I want to stay motivated, but I always lose momentum, what would you say?
I would say stop building your whole system around feelings.
That's a very good answer.
Feelings matter, but they change too much. Build a system that still works on average days.
Yes. Not only on perfect days.
Exactly.
I would say, make things smaller, clearer, and kinder.
I love that.
Smaller goals, clearer steps, kinder self-talk.
That sounds like a very healthy framework.
I think so too.
And I would also say this. If motivation is low, don't always ask, how do I push harder?
What should they ask instead?
Ask, what is making this hard right now?
That is such a good question.
Because sometimes the answer changes everything.
Yes. Maybe the problem is not laziness.
Maybe it's confusion.
Or exhaustion.
Or fear.
Or loneliness.
Or unrealistic pressure.
Exactly. So what's one thing you want to stay motivated about this week?
I want to stay motivated about taking care of my energy, not only my tasks.
That's beautiful.
What about you?
I want to stay motivated about consistency, even in small ways.
That sounds very Emily.
I know.
And I support it.
Thank you.
So maybe the message of this episode is simple.
Motivation is helpful, but it is not the whole story.
Yes. And when it disappears, that doesn't mean you failed.
It just means you need to come back in a smarter way.
Exactly.
So that was our conversation about how to stay motivated.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Easy English Podcast with Emily and Michael.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel and share it with a friend who is learning English too.
We'd really appreciate that.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.